What's up, y'all? It's your girl Cornelia back with another episode of Black News, a podcast where we break down current events, hot topics, and local stories involving Black people. Now let's get into it. Y'all, welcome back to another episode of Black News. Another day, another dollar. It's a lot going on. Another day, no dollars. Not saying that actually we're not poor. We're not saying that. I'm just saying as far as the trying times. Y'all, it's how y'all doing? How y'all doing? Wendy Williams, how you doing? How are y'all doing? It has been another eventful week. On another note, adjacent that's been going on, the podcast last week was uploaded successfully. I worked out the kinks and figured it out. So for now, we should be good. We in there like swimwear. But at one point, y'all know it was sketchy. The podcast was not being uploaded. It was, hey, I thought I was going to have to quit. One thing I don't have time to be doing is no extra troubleshooting. I got time to do what I know how to do and get it up. Okay, I don't got time for no extra stuff. And it was crazy. So I figured it out. We should be good for now. Thank y'all for bearing with me through all of that because it was extremely frustrating. With that and with this week's topics, yeah. Don Lemon was arrested. Last week we talked about the situation that was happening with Alex Preddy in Minneapolis. I discussed how there were rumors, and this was in the previous weeks, about journalists being arrested in or because of what happened in Minneapolis. But that actually came to light. There was a mandate down from the people over there in that house that Don Lemon, in addition to 3 other people, journalists and activists, be arrested. Let me know early on, only the Black people were arrested. There were people all up and through that church, protesters, bystanders, you name it. Only Black people were arrested. After it appears that judges and courts at multiple levels refused to charge and refused to move forward with it because they said it was no grounds for the arrest and the charging. Then them people over in that house said that they, air quote, got a grand jury to agree to it. So even the courts were like, no, they went and did it anyway. And again, all of this happening while the person who shot Alex Preddy in the back 10 times is still just walking around. And allegedly it has been revealed that, it has allegedly been revealed. The identities have been revealed. Y'all know what I'm trying to say. Child, the identity has allegedly been revealed for the 2 people responsible. I'm not going to name their names because the jury, I don't know if the jury's still out on that or if it's confirmed. Child, they are, I ain't gonna, never mind. Once it's confirmed, we'll talk about it. But the point of this particular topic is to talk about the arresting of journalists. Now, I'm going to read the definition of fascism again. Because we've been talking about this. We know what we are here. We are here. And when you start to arrest people for just delivering the news, that is when you know we are in uncharted territory for the current time. I'm not going to say uncharted territory for the history of this country because that's not true. Journalists and them was getting scooped up, arrested back in the day. Everybody on every level was getting attacked up until, like we can say today. I was just watching a wonderful documentary on PBS online. It's on YouTube. It was about Thurgood Marshall. I believe they uploaded because it's Black History Month. Shout out to Black History. And it was talking about the legendary Thurgood Marshall, his start, him as a child, him going to Lincoln University, then going to Howard Law School, and then being mentored by, I forget the gentleman's name, but they were the duo, in addition to other people in the legal field who mapped out the tactics and put together the strategy that was used by the NAACP Legal Defense Fund to fight all of those cases in the United States of America and in the American South, East, and Midwest. But in that, there were moments where, and I don't think I heard it laid out. I watched the movie and I know about their commercial, but it was to the point where they were specifically talking about how at one point Thurgood Marshall was intercepted. He was taken captive, if you will, in the South when he was down there trying to fight a case, and was taken to a river or a bridge, and they were about to lynch him. He saw the news. People who knew he was in town and the people who were supposed to be watching over him found out, went there, and had to go get him back because he was literally about to be hung in the South. In addition to him having to move from house to house every night when he would be traveling across the country trying to fight these cases, because literally people would be they were trying to take his life. I say that because when going back to when I said, like, this is not the first time that journalists have been attacked. Everybody throughout, every Black person throughout who are fighting the fight, fighting the good fight, protesting, speaking out, have always been under attack and under the microscope. So we are here. But let me read this definition because, guys, just want to remind everybody. Fascism, a governmental system led by a dictator having complete power, forcibly suppressing opposition and criticism, regimenting all industry, commerce, etc., and emphasizing an aggressive nationalism and often racism. Guys, then it's a political movement that employs the principles and methods of fascism, especially the one established by Mussolini in Italy between 1922 and 1943. I read that because there is a reason why Black people specifically were targeted with this particular incident that happened in Minnesota. Now, let me back up. Who all was arrested and charged? We have Don Lemon, as mentioned. He is now an independent journalist, is not affiliated with CNN like he was, and is actually able to speak more freely and do more things. And while I'm thinking about it right now and on this subject, before I read the rest of the names, this actually is not doing the people in that house any favors. It's only magnifying the message, because now what you've done, you've empowered Don. You have given him heightened credibility, more eyes and more visibility. So now we really know what's going on and what's happening. Whereas you could have just left him alone. But nope, didn't. Okay. So it's Don Lemon, then independent journalist Georgia Fort, along with activist Trahim Jean Cruz and Jamil Lindell Lundy. They were all arrested on January 30th. I'm not sure about the two young men, but I know Don and Georgia were arrested where they were staying. Don was on the West Coast in California. Georgia, I forget where she's based in the Midwest. They showed up. They showed up with the arrest. With them boys showed up to get them. Now, the charges, they're charged with federal crimes, including violating the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances, that's the FACE Act, which was designed to protect religious worship, and amongst other things. So why do I think this happened? right? Why do we think this happened? And before I get into that, you know what? I'm going to read a little bit of the article in AP so we have a little more context. And then we'll get into why I think this happened. Okay. So this is according to AP. 9 people, including former CNN anchor Don Lemon and other journalists, have been charged with violating 2 different federal laws in connection with the protest that interrupted a worship service in a Minnesota church earlier this month. The group that barged into a worship service that Sunday was upset that the head of the local field office for U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, was a pastor. The protest was quickly denounced by that man over there in the house and that attorney general, that lady. Um, Now, it says Lemon and other reporter and a local reporter were covering the protest on January 18th at the church. And a grand jury in Minnesota indicted Lemon and others on charges of conspiracy and interfering with the First Amendment rights of worshipers. The incident alleges various actions by the group that entered the church, including what Lemon said as he reported on the event for his live stream show. The arrests of Lemon and independent journalist Georgia Ford are especially troubling for legal experts and media groups who worry about the chilling effect on coverage of the people in that house. A professor at the University of Pittsburgh, specializing in criminal law, said the charges against the protesters are more tenable given the federal laws against disrupting the free exercise of worship. A court will have to sort that out. But charges against the reporters are troubling. Charging journalists for being there covering the disruption does not mean they were part of the disruption. Don Lemon and other journalists are the way that we are public, that the way that we, the public, are finding out what's happening in these spaces. They are our eyes and ears. The message that is being sent is that journalists like Don Lemon and others should feel intimidated from doing this. That's the first point. What, how do you control the messaging? How do you control a population? And how do you control what people are receiving? One, you take over the news. We see this with specific news stations that are being run and led by conservative leadership. They clean in house. They're replacing the content to the point where it's obviously skewing the information that's coming out in one direction. One, that's how you do that. Two, whenever someone says something that you don't like, the people in the house, you post about it, you speak about them, you send vitriol their way, and you make it seem as if they are doing something so bad and egregious that it must be immediately stopped, and you sick the American citizens that align with you onto those people. So that's one deterrent. You then also start to punish people who don't say the things that you like. If anyone speaks out against you, you punish them. You sick the dogs on them. If anybody says anything or challenges you, you punish them. If anybody does anything you like and they're a part of the media, you make it so bad for them that they will be so deterred against trying to do it again. One way to do that is arrest people and threaten them with jail. Because one thing people don't want to do is be sitting up in no jail. However, if you people who actually read history, one part of protest and resistance, some people being locked up. Teenagers were being arrested and put in jail during the civil rights movement because we was out here getting active. Martin Luther King wrote a letter from Birmingham jail. That brother was in the slammer, okay? So we have that. Another part of this, because one thing that has been the conversation for since this whole year is it seems like people are trying to bait Black people to get into the mix. We have, as a collective, and I'm not going to say all people, but I talk about this all the time. It is not lost on me how, as a collective, a lot of Black people had the sense and the feeling of standing down for whatever reasons that may be. I honestly think it is ancestral protection. That is my honest opinion. Also as a way to everybody else to get their practice and get their reps in, and for us as Black people to find and to learn other ways of resistance that don't force our bodies to be on the line. You can protest and you can do a lot of stuff with technology and resources. But the idea of people like, oh, they're trying to bait Black people to come out here. You see, recently there have been a lot of posts calling for the arrest of Barack Obama. It's starting to honestly feel like there is a grasping at straws that is happening to figure out how to specifically target Black people. You got ICE who are specifically targeting all Black and people of color, regardless of if they're an international immigrant or not. We see that, but that is was introduced as something for people of color. But for Black people, I honestly think that they did not anticipate this level of standing down. And so now it's we going to take every opportunity that we can. It is also rooted in they just don't like Black people. So when you see a group of protesters in a church who are of all demographics, the majority were of Caucasian descent, and journalists and people on the ground there, you have Don Lemon and other journalists who were not agitators, not doing any of the organizing, literally were told, hey, it's a protest about to happen at this church because the pastor is ICE, allegedly. I'm just gonna throw that out there because you know how people be. And then those journalists showed up to report on what was happening so that we, the public, can be informed. You specifically, out of all hundreds of people in the vicinity, only arrest the Black people. That is a targeted effort. That is not a mistake at all. So it seems as if, with all of those things and all of those reasonings, it can all funnel up and down into an effort to silence the media and to shut people up from telling the story and for relaying the news that is not appealing to the people in that house. Because one thing about fascism is within a dictatorship, and we see this with countries that are under fascism or authoritarian rule. You step out of line, that's it. You only say what we want you to say. You only watch what we want you to watch. You only learn what we want you to learn. And independent journalism does not coincide with that. That is what's happening in real time. So, what's next? Right? What is next? Those people who were arrested they all are out. They have to reappear in court and they have to fight these charges. We don't know. They don't know. No one knows what is going to happen as a result because at this point within the court system, we don't know who doing what, who has what ideas, who in somebody's back pocket. We just don't know. So we literally have to watch it play out. But one thing people need to be paying attention to is that this could be the start of an attack on freedom of speech for everyone. Because again, under authoritarianism, fascism, and so on, a dictatorship, you don't get to just say what you want to say. That goes for everybody. We've seen allegations of the new TikTok algorithm being tailored toward a more conservative leaning messaging. We've seen that with X child that X are taking over. Okay, a full mess over there. We could see for not just independent journalism, we can continue to see the muzzling of people within corporate media because it's already pretty noticeable. Then it can start trickling down to other independent journalists and just simple bloggers, commentators, and so on and so on, to the point where you want to scare everybody shitless into being quiet, because if not, you're going to throw their ass in jail. Guys, hey. Now, of course, I'm going to be following this as someone with a podcast and as someone who has worked in news and know people with big platforms who are speaking out, because everybody at this point should have something to say, not about this, but just about ICE and everything that's going on. Everybody should be saying something about this and ICE and everything that's going on. Some people aren't, but this is going to affect everyone. I also don't, because some people making light of it, right? Some people thinking, whether however you feel about Don Lemon, however you feel about even conservative journalists, regardless of where you lie with this, it doesn't matter. This is not funny. It's not a game. This shit is real. So I know I'm not entertaining none of that goofy nothing. You be kikiing about this and think it's funny that he got locked up. Hey, I know where I stand. I have drawn my line in the sand, and we are beyond the point of thinking that this stuff is going to blow over and it's not that big of a deal. Fascism is here. But yeah, like I said, we're gonna follow the case and see what and continue to report on it and talk about it as it develops. Cause child, it's it's on. But let me know your thoughts about it. Um, if you think this is just the beginning, or if you think this is just another, rather random ploy and tactic to um to shut people up and to just cause distractions, let me know. You can find me at Canelia on social media. And lastly, I debated on what I wanted to kind of wrap up mentioning. There's a lot of conversation about them Epstein files, baby. Ooh, it's a lot of conversation. I know this is the Black News podcast, and I think I saw somebody was going around saying, and I didn't read this specifically, that Jeffrey, that when it was down in the emails talking about how he did not want any black people on the island, any black girls, women, men, whoever. He didn't want them around because black people have low intelligence and are beneath him or something like that. To that I say, thank God you thought that way, because if that is the case, it is likely that that was a form of protection, and that none of our people were down there being hurt, but while also acknowledging that based on what was released, there were a lot of people being hurt by a lot of people. Okay. A lot of allegedly. I'm just talking about what was on the papers. A lot of children, a lot of women, girls and boys. It's looking crazy. So that is something that has been uh getting a lot of conversation. That I'm not going to spend too much time on, because again, it's just we know what that is. Another thing that's happening, Super Bowl Sunday is coming up. This year, Bad Bunny is performing. Bad Bunny, he is performing. And shout out to Bad Bunny. He won the Album of the Year award this past week. He is the first artist to win that award for a fully Spanish speaking album. So well deserved. That album, and what he has done is just spectacular. I believe I even saw that because he did a residency for the performing in Puerto Rico. He did a lot of shows. It was to the point, y'all, I was even looking at tickets. I tried to get, hey, I need to get down to Puerto Rico. Don't know what's the song talking about, but it was jamming. I feel the music, but I think I saw that residency generated over $400 million into the Puerto Rican economy. That is insane. And that is fantastic and just a huge feat considering that everything that is going on politically and the targeting hatred that Puerto Rico has gotten at one point, Bad Bunny has gotten at one point. It's just he is really out here doing it, and I'm really happy for him. Super Bowl is coming up, and he gonna be down to the performing. People are still mixed between excited, and then you got the haters who are madder than a mug. So it should be an exciting weekend. I know it's gonna be a good show. I will be tuned in. Um, I don't have no predictions on special guests. I don't have no skin in the game about who gonna come out and all of that. I do know this is gonna be one of the most watched Super Bowl halftime shows in history. I predict it may be the most watched in our recent era. I'm not gonna include in the Michael and them era because back then Michael is Michael, Prince is Prince, and that was when we only had like two channels, so everybody was watching. Now you have so many different options with streaming and accessibility. However, Bad Bunny's audience is massive. It is not just the United States and the Caribbean. The Spanish speaking world is throughout. So I predict this might be the biggest, the most watched Super Bowl halftime show that we've seen. They also simultaneously going to stream like a Red Hat halftime show with some people that we don't really be known to care about. So that should be interesting to see what that's about because I can guarantee you it's going to be 5 people watching that. But what do y'all think? And are y'all excited about it? I am. I think I saw that Green Day was performing like at some point in the weekend. Now listen, y'all know Green Day. They gonna speak out. They speaking out. So when I saw that, I was just tickled because if you want to piss somebody off and have somebody deliver a message about social climate, what is happening in this world, politics, you need to call up Green Day because they've been delivering that messaging from the start. So overall, it's just gonna be a good time. Y'all know I'm really watching football like that. Let me back up. I'm be really watching NFL. Okay. But y'all know I will support the halftime show and I am supportive of Bad Bunny and his artistry because he seemed like a really nice guy. And again, that album was jamming. Okay, it was jamming. So yeah, that should be very exciting to witness. Let me know if y'all plan on watching. Okay? Let me know. I don't even know who playing. Let me look. Y'all, it's the Seahawks and the Patriots. I don't know, child. Who we going for? Because I don't think the rules of the playoff rules don't apply to this one. The championship rules. Y'all remember the rules? I believe Roy Wood Jr. has some rules up like this as well. They may even be his rules, but I like them. So I'm gonna reiterate if I can remember correctly. And I think I said them on Black News before. This is who you root for. If your team is not playing, okay, if your team isn't playing, then you root for the team with the black quarterback. In this case, I don't think Seattle or the Patriots or New England has a black quarterback. In the event that that happens, then you root for the team with the black coach. I don't think they neither got no black coaches. Okay. As far as what I recall, I don't think. Hey, I don't think it's no black head coach. Okay. In the event that that expectation is not met, you root for the team in the black city. Hey, I think we out on both of those in this case as well. Okay, we out. If that is the case, then you just gotta enjoy and let go and let God. I might be rooting for the Seahawks because Marshawn Lynch used to play for them. But at one point, I feel like they was doing them a little dirty. So I don't know. I'm just gonna be whoever wins. Hey, that's it. Good job, buddy. Otherwise, we here for Bad Bunny. Let me know your thoughts if y'all have any predictions about the actual game. If you are excited about Bad Bunny, or if not, maybe you ain't feeling it. But we'll see. I think it's gonna be a good time. Let me know your thoughts about it though. You can find me at Canelia on social media. On this week's episode of Black News, we talked about Don Lemon, in addition to journalist Georgia Ford and two other activists being arrested and charged in connection with being around a protest that happened in Minneapolis a few weeks ago. We also talked about the upcoming Super Bowl halftime show and being excited to see Bad Bunny perform. Let me know your thoughts about all of these topics, some or none, and I'll check back with you guys next time. That's it for this week's episode of Black News, y'all. Thanks again for supporting the podcast by sharing, liking, subscribing, and rating 5 stars on your favorite podcast app. To find more information about me, you can check me out at Canelia on social media, as well as on my website, which is canelia.com. And as always, thanks for supporting, and I'll be back next week with new topics and a new episode.